Let me tell you something that might sting a little. You don't owe toxic people your peace, not your energy, not your explanation, not your presence. Smart people, they don't negotiate with chaos. They walk through life with clarity, not guilt. We all know someone who just drains the life out of us, the kind of person who makes everything about them. You show up with good news, and somehow it becomes a competition. You set a boundary, and they play the victim. You express your needs, and suddenly you're the selfish one. Sound familiar? Smart people, the ones who are winning in life, not just financially or professionally, but emotionally. They've learned something powerful. You cannot change a toxic person, but you can change how much access they have to you. And that's a game changer. Here's what smart people understand. You are the gatekeeper of your life. You decide who gets in, who stays, and who gets cut off at the gate. You don't give someone the keys to your peace and then get mad when they keep setting fire to the place. That's not strength. That's self-sabotage dressed up as compassion. Now, this doesn't mean you become cold. This isn't about revenge or spite or walking around with a chip on your shoulder. Oh no, it's about clarity, discipline, boundaries, self-respect. Smart people know this. You can be kind and still cut someone off. You can be empathetic and still walk away. You can love someone and still love yourself more. Toxic people thrive in confusion, in guilt, in your over-explaining. So what do smart people do? They stop feeding the drama. When a toxic person baits them into a fight, they disengage. When someone tries to gaslight them, twist the truth, make them question their reality, they don't argue. They stand firm. Why? Because smart people know that their energy is currency, and they're not spending it on bankrupt connections. Let me be real with you. Removing toxic people is not a loss, it's a level up. It's not you being mean, it's you being wise. Because life is too short to keep people around who make you feel small, misunderstood, or manipulated. Life is too damn short to keep justifying bad behavior from people who refuse to grow. You are not a rehab center for broken potential. You are not a punching bag for someone else's pain. You are not a mirror for their projections. You are a whole human being with dreams, purpose, and a future to protect. Smart people protect their peace like it's gold. Because it is. And when someone brings chaos, negativity, manipulation, or control into their lives, they don't yell, they don't beg, they don't chase, they subtract. Silently, cleanly, powerfully. And here's the thing no one tells you. When you stop entertaining toxic people, your life gets quieter. At first, that quiet can feel lonely, but don't confuse peace with emptiness. That silence, that's your soul breathing again. That's clarity. That's space. That's the foundation for your real life to begin. Smart people don't try to fix people who don't want to be fixed. They don't water dead plants. They don't light themselves on fire to keep others warm. They don't spend their days trying to prove their worth to people committed to misunderstanding them. No, they stand tall. They keep moving. They put their energy into relationships that reciprocate, into goals that inspire, into environments that empower. So, if you're listening to this and someone came to mind, someone who's been weighing you down, stealing your joy, messing with your mental clarity, I want you to remember this. Smart people don't wait for permission to protect their peace. They take responsibility for it. You don't need a dramatic exit. You don't need a final confrontation. You don't need closure from the person who broke you. You just need a decision to step back, a decision to choose yourself, a decision to be smart. And being smart, that means doing what's best for your growth, your peace, and your future, even if it's uncomfortable. Toxic people don't just drain you, they distract you from your goals, from your confidence, from your joy, from your focus. Smart people don't allow that. They reclaim their time, their space, and their power. So here's your permission slip to cut ties, to unfollow, to say no, to go no contact if you need to, and to do it without guilt. Because this is how smart people treat toxic people. They remove the power, they raise the standard, and they never look back. And guess what? You are smart enough to do the same. And that starts with boundaries. See, smart people set them firmly, clearly, and without guilt. They don't apologize for protecting their energy. They don't feel bad for saying no. They don't explain over and over why something doesn't work for them. Because they've learned this truth. Every time you say yes to someone toxic, you're saying no to yourself. Let that sink in. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks, and you hold the key. You get to decide who walks in, who stays, and who doesn't even get close. Smart people don't leave that door wide open. They know what drains them. They've learned, sometimes the hard way, that being available to everyone means you're not fully present for yourself. And no, they don't get loud about it. They don't make a scene. They don't make it personal, because it's not about punishment. It's about preservation. It's about choosing their own mental health, clarity, and joy over chaos, guilt, and confusion. They're not cruel. They're clear. And clarity is power. They might say, I'm not available for this conversation, or I can't continue this relationship in the same way, or even just walk away without a word. And that's enough. Because the boundary isn't for the toxic person. It's for them. To remind themselves they are worth protecting. Their peace is worth guarding. Their time is worth honoring. And here's the key. Once a smart person sets a boundary, they enforce it. No backpedaling, no second guessing. They don't set a line and then erase it when someone throws a tantrum. They hold the line, with calm, with confidence, and with conviction. That's not cold. That's not harsh. That's wise. That's what strength looks like in action. And if someone sees your boundary as an attack, that's not your problem. That's proof the boundary was needed in the first place. Because the truth is, the people who benefit from you having no boundaries are the first to complain when you finally set one. Smart people? They've learned to be okay with that. Because protecting your peace will always upset the people who were comfortable disturbing it. And once that boundary is in place, something powerful happens. Clarity sets in. That's when smart people recognize a deeper truth. You can't fix toxic people. You can love them. You can pray for them. You can hope they change. But at the end of the day, change is an inside job, and if someone is committed to staying the same, it's not your responsibility to drag them toward growth. This is where a lot of people get stuck, because you see the potential in them. You remember the good moments. You think, maybe if I say it the right way, they'll finally get it. But they won't. Not if they're not willing. Not if they're not ready. Smart people stop trying to rescue people who are addicted to their own chaos. It's exhausting, isn't it? Trying to heal someone who keeps cutting you, giving second, third, 10th chances only to end up more drained than before. Smart people know that's not love. That's a trap, a cycle, a pattern that repeats until you break it with one brave decision. I'm done trying to fix what isn't mine to fix. Because here's the deal. You are not their project. You are not their savior. You're not responsible for their healing journey. That's theirs to walk. And the more you try to carry someone who refuses to stand, the more you lose your own balance. Smart people stop carrying. They stop explaining, fixing, overfunctioning. They step back. And in that space, they let the toxic person face the weight of their own choices. Not out of spite, but out of wisdom. Because enabling someone's dysfunction isn't kindness, it's participation. And let's be real, toxic people rarely change when you keep rescuing them. They change when they hit a wall, when they lose access, when the consequences become real. And smart people, they become the wall, the turning point, the wake-up call, not by force, but by exit. They don't try to rewrite someone's story. They just stop letting that story control theirs. Because smart people understand, the most powerful way to help someone is sometimes by stepping aside and letting them help themselves. And when they stop trying to fix toxic people, something even more liberating happens. They stop engaging with the drama. They realize not every insult needs a reaction. Not every lie deserves a defense. Not every storm is meant to be entered. Smart people don't get pulled into the chaos. They stand above it. Because drama is a trap. It's a loop designed to suck you in and keep you spinning. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Toxic people thrive in that loop. They know how to provoke, how to twist words, how to bait you with guilt, accusations, or pity, just to pull you back into their mess. And smart people, they see the game, and they refuse to play. They've learned that silence is power, that walking away from an argument you can't win, because it was never about truth, it was about control, is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's strength. It's choosing your peace over your pride. Smart people understand that engaging with toxic people only validates their behavior. Every time you argue back, defend yourself, try to explain your intentions, you're giving them what they want, your energy, your time, your emotional reaction, and that's what fuels the drama. So what do they do instead? They pause. They detach. They observe without reacting. They keep their tone calm, their responses minimal, or sometimes they say nothing at all, because they know you don't owe anyone your emotional chaos just because they live in it. And here's the kicker. When you stop feeding the drama, toxic people get louder. They escalate. They push harder. Why? Because your peace threatens their control. Your refusal to engage forces them to face themselves. And most toxic people are terrified of that silence, that mirror. But smart people don't flinch. They don't get pulled back in. They don't raise their voice to match the volume. They walk away, not to hurt the other person, but to protect themselves. Because peace is a choice. And choosing it often means refusing to participate in conversations that go nowhere, in arguments that solve nothing, and in cycles that only lead to more pain. Smart people break the cycle, not with more words, but with less. Not with louder arguments, but with quiet exits. They don't prove themselves, they protect themselves. And when they stop feeding the drama, something shifts. They start seeing their energy for what it truly is, currency. Just like money, once it's spent, it's gone. And smart people, they treat their energy like it's gold. They guard it. They invest it where there's return, in people who uplift, not drain, in conversations that build, not break, in environments that nourish, not deplete. Because here's the truth. Your energy is your power. Where you place it determines what grows in your life. Toxic people want that energy because it fuels their dysfunction. The more you respond, react, explain, the more power you give away. And smart people don't fund dysfunction with their focus. They wake up and ask, where's my energy going today? Is it going toward worrying about what that toxic person might say? Toward rehearsing a conversation that won't go anywhere? Toward guilt, resentment, regret? Or is it going toward peace, purpose, progress? That awareness changes everything. Because when you realize your energy is limited, you start spending it wisely. You stop entertaining people who only reach out when they need something. You stop engaging in conversations that leave you feeling worse, not better. You stop allowing others to siphon your attention, your clarity, your spark. Smart people become selective, not bitter, not closed off, just aware of what their presence is worth. They stop being available 24/7 for people who wouldn't notice if they disappeared. They learn that being accessible to everyone is the fastest way to lose yourself. So they reclaim it. Quietly, fiercely, they choose to pour into things that give life back. And slowly, their world transforms. Less noise, more intention, fewer obligations, more alignment. And here's the beautiful part. When they start treating their energy like currency, they stop chasing. They stop over-explaining. They stop proving. Because they know their value, and they're not interested in convincing anyone else of it. They invest wisely in their peace, their people, and their purpose. And anything that doesn't align, they let it go. Not because it wasn't important once, but because it's too expensive to keep. And once they understand how valuable their energy is, they stop wasting it chasing something that never really comes. Closure. Smart people learn the hard truth. You don't need closure to move on. You don't need the apology. You don't need the explanation. You don't need the long emotional conversation where they finally get it. Because most of the time, they won't. And waiting for it only keeps you stuck in a chapter that's already finished. Smart people stop reopening wounds just to understand why they were cut. They stop spinning in circles trying to make sense of someone else's damage. They stop sitting at a table that only ever served confusion and pain because they've realized peace is something you give yourself. Closure isn't about what they say, it's about what you decide. It's that quiet, personal moment where you stop waiting and start choosing to move forward without all the answers, choosing to let go without the final word, choosing to close the book even if the last page didn't make sense, because rereading it 1,000 times won't change the ending. And it's not easy. We want resolution. We want justice. We want acknowledgement. But smart people know that waiting for closure from someone who hurt you is like asking the storm to explain itself after it's already passed through. So instead, they give themselves permission to heal without permission. They choose to walk away even if there's no apology. They choose to grow even if they never got the truth, because they understand closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision. They stop giving the past the power to hold the pen. They stop needing to make sense of senseless behavior. They stop trying to make someone accountable who refuses to even be honest, because the longer you chase closure, the longer you delay your own freedom. And smart people, they don't delay healing for anyone. They know their life is too important, too full of potential, to be paused by someone who already showed you who they are. So they breathe, they let go, they write their own ending, and they move on, not because they got closure from them, but because they finally gave it to themselves. And when they stop chasing closure, what they begin to value on a whole new level is peace, not just silence, not just the absence of conflict, but real, grounded, deep in your bones peace, the kind that lets you sleep at night, breathe easier, and show up fully in your own life without walking on emotional eggshells. Smart people start choosing peace over chaos every single time. And that choice isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's not always obvious from the outside. But it's everything. Because when you've lived in constant tension, when you've spent your days in emotional roller coasters, you realize peace is not boring, it's freedom. Toxic people are addicted to chaos. It's where they feel most powerful, in the confusion, the conflict, the emotional highs and lows. But smart people refuse to live in that storm. They stop reacting to every button pushed. They stop running toward fires they didn't start. They stop letting other people's instability hijack their day, their focus, their spirit. Instead, they pause, they breathe, they choose stillness. They realize that protecting their peace might mean declining the call, not answering the text, canceling the visit, letting the message sit unread, not out of avoidance, but out of clarity, because they've learned not every situation deserves their presence, and not every person deserves their access. They understand that not all storms are meant to be calmed. Some are meant to be walked away from, quietly, without warning, without justification. Just a simple, firm decision to no longer participate in what costs too much mentally and emotionally. And that's not weakness, that's maturity, because peace doesn't come by accident. It's created. It's built through boundaries, protected by choices, and honored by consistency. And once smart people taste what it feels like to live free of the chaos, they refuse to go back. They'd rather disappoint someone else than betray themselves. They'd rather lose a toxic connection than lose their calm. And so they choose peace, not once, but over and over again, in conversations, in relationships, in decisions. Because peace isn't just a feeling, it's a lifestyle. And smart people commit to it like their life depends on it, because, in many ways, it does. And as peace becomes the priority, something beautiful begins to unfold. They start to grow. Not just heal, not just recover, grow. Smart people realize that peace isn't the end goal, it's the foundation. And from that still, clear place, they begin to build, to rise, to become. They stop wasting time trying to change people who don't want to change, and instead they pour that time into themselves, into learning, into creating, into evolving. Because they know growth doesn't happen in toxic soil. It needs space. It needs light. It needs room to breathe. Toxic relationships shrink you. They make you question yourself, dim your light, suppress your voice just to keep the peace. But it's not real peace if you have to destroy yourself to maintain it. And smart people? They stop shrinking. They stop apologizing for wanting more, for dreaming bigger, for becoming better. They begin to surround themselves with people who reflect where they're going, not just where they've been. People who challenge them, support them, hold them accountable in love, not manipulate them through guilt. They choose environments that feed their future, not just tolerate their past. And here's what's powerful. Growth becomes their revenge. Not pettiness, not proving, just progress. Quiet, consistent, undeniable growth. They stop explaining themselves and let their life speak for them. Their peace becomes louder than any argument they walked away from. Their success becomes louder than any insult that tried to break them. Because smart people know the best way to respond to toxicity is to rise above it, to outgrow it, to make it irrelevant by stepping so fully into who they are becoming that the old version of themselves wouldn't even recognize the room they're in now. They don't stay stuck out of loyalty. They don't shrink for approval. They grow boldly, intentionally, and unapologetically, not for anyone else, for themselves, because they know the most powerful thing they can ever do is become who they were always meant to be, without needing permission, validation, or understanding from anyone who couldn't see it. And as they grow, they come to a crossroads, one of the hardest, most defining moments of all. The moment where they realize that real self-love means being willing to walk away, even from the people they once cared deeply about. Not because they didn't matter, not because the memories weren't real, but because staying would mean abandoning themselves. Smart people learn that love without respect is not love. That connection without safety is not worth holding on to. That loyalty to someone who consistently hurts you is not strength, it's self-neglect. And they decide, often with tears in their eyes and a weight in their chest, to finally choose themselves. They walk away not in anger, but in truth. Not because they stopped caring, but because they started caring about themselves more. They stop waiting for someone to change, to show up, to do better. And they take that energy and pour it into healing, into rebuilding, into becoming. Because love, real love, should never require you to betray your own soul. It should never ask you to silence your voice, second-guess your worth, or sacrifice your peace just to stay connected. Smart people stop confusing pain with passion. They stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. They stop believing that enduring mistreatment is proof of loyalty. They understand that walking away is not giving up, it's rising up. It's choosing growth over comfort, clarity over confusion, freedom over familiarity. And yes, it's hard, it's painful, it breaks your heart, but it also rebuilds it stronger, fuller, more grounded in truth. Because when you love yourself enough to leave what's breaking you, you create space for something new, something aligned, something healthy. Smart people don't cling to potential, they live in reality. They don't wait for a new version of someone to appear. They make the decision that honors their own soul. They look in the mirror and say, I love me too much to keep living like this. And that single moment, that quiet, personal decision, becomes the turning point, the breakthrough, the beginning of everything better. They don't need anyone's permission to choose themselves. They just do it. And once they do, they never go back. Because they've tasted what it feels like to be whole. And they refuse to settle for fragments ever again. And once they've made that choice, that powerful decision to walk away, to love themselves enough to leave, smart people don't look back. Not because they're cold or unforgiving, but because they've learned that looking back only drags you down. It keeps you tethered to pain, to old stories, to wounds that need time and space to heal. They understand that moving forward is not about forgetting or pretending nothing happened. It's about honoring what was without allowing it to control what will be. They carry the lessons, the scars, the growth, but they don't carry the baggage. They don't replay the what ifs or the whys, because every backward glance is a chance to stumble, to lose the momentum they fought so hard to gain. Smart people know that every step forward is a declaration, a statement that says, I am more than my past. I am not defined by the toxicity I endured. I am not trapped by what broke me. And with each step, they reclaim a little more of themselves, their confidence, their peace, their power. They protect their forward motion fiercely because they've seen what happens when they don't. Old habits creep in. Doubts resurface. The cycle threatens to repeat. So instead of reopening doors that were meant to be closed, they build new ones. Doors that lead to freedom, joy, and growth. And here's the beautiful, unshakable truth. Once you decide not to look back, you become unstoppable. Because you're no longer dragging chains. You're walking tall, light, and free. Your past is a teacher, not a jailer. They don't need to check if toxic people have changed. They don't need validation or forgiveness from those who hurt them. They've found that within themselves. And that's the real power, to walk away, to rise, and to never, ever look back. Because the smartest people aren't just survivors, they're warriors of their own peace. And warriors don't turn around in the middle of battle. They keep moving forward, toward the life they deserve, the peace they fought for, and the future only they can create. So here's the bottom line. Smart people don't waste their time or energy trying to change toxic people or fix what's broken outside themselves. They set firm boundaries, protect their peace fiercely, and choose growth over drama every single time. They understand that true strength isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to walk away. They don't need closure from those who caused pain because they give themselves permission to heal and move forward. They love themselves enough to prioritize their own well-being, even if it means leaving people behind. And once they make that choice, they refuse to look back because their future is far too valuable to be trapped by the past. That's how smart people treat toxic people, with wisdom, courage, and unwavering self-respect. And that's exactly how you deserve to live your life.